The unfortunate reality about us as humans is that we tend to forget to make an intention. Because we're caught up in our various activities that we have to do on a daily basis, and we lose out on the immense potential that we have within an intention. With an intention, a small action can become huge. And without an intention, an action that may appear to be a deed, a good deed, may be nothing. You woke up early in the morning, had a breakfast, and then you were working the entire day. And the only time you got some moments free to have something to eat was after Maghrib. The whole day you didn't eat. And now you're eating. But you didn't have an intention for fasting, so it's not a fast. So without an intention, you lose out. And sometimes we do a good deed, but we have a bad intention. I'm doing this thing which seems to be a good deed, donate to a certain organization, but you want them to acknowledge you. And then sometimes we do a good deed, but we lose out on the maximum potential of the deed because we only make one intention. Whereas if we made multiple intentions, we could have got multiple rewards. So we just make intention, I'm coming to Jummah to fulfill the obligation. But if you made intention that I'm going for Jummah, if I see anything on the road that is troublesome to motorists, I'll remove it. Whoever I meet on the way, I'll greet the person. If there's an opportunity to help someone, I'll help the person. I'm following the sunnah of walking to the masjid. My dress is Islamic dress, it should serve as a means of dawah. Now you also came to the masjid, but with multiple intentions, you get multiple rewards. Because remember, in the end of the day, we only have 24 hours in the day. We can only do so much in good deeds. That is how much we can do. But there's no limit to the number of intentions we can add to those good deeds. And that amount of good deeds, because of the intention, it can be multiplied so many fold that with every intention or with every action, there's so many more rewards that we will get. And that is why it has such an important part in our deen. The famous hadith that we all are familiar with, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. Actions are judged according to its intention. We know this hadith. It's taught to the children from a young age. Imam Shafi'i rahimahumullah said that this is 1/4 of the entire deen is in this narration. And he said that there are more than 70 chapters of knowledge that has been taken out of this narration. If you look at the Sahih al-Bukhari, the Riyadh al-Salihun of Imam Nawawi, all these books start with this hadith, reminding us that your action is judged by the intention. In fact, Abdul Rahman al-Mahdi, one scholar, said that it's even appropriate that every chapter of every book should have this narration in the beginning, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, because it's so important that you be reminded again and again and again that your action should be solely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Imam Abu Dawud rahimahumullah, great muhaddith, Sajistani rahimahumullah, he said that I had gathered 500,000 ahadith. 500,000 ahadith, different chains. And from that I chose 6,800 for my book, my Sunan Abu Dawud, which is one of the 6 authentic books of hadith. And from those 6,800, there's 4 hadith that he chose. He said that this encapsulates the entire deen in it. And one of those narrations was, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. Every action is judged according to one's intention. And the reason why we need to highlight this is because there's immense power in our intention. There's immense power in intention in the sense that we can tap into great rewards. The hadith says, Man ata firashahu wa huwa yanwi an yaquma min al-layl. A man goes to sleep at night and he intends to wake up for the tahajjud salah. So he puts his alarm 3 o'clock. And then فَغَلَبَهُ النَّوْمِ, but he sleeps right through, and he sleeps right till he hears the muazzin calling the Fajr azan. And then he wakes up, he performs his Fajr. But because of the intention of performing the tahajjud salah, he will get the reward of tahajjud salah. وَكَانَ نَوْمُ صَدَقَةٌ. And his sleep is a charity. It's a gift from Allah to him. So he got the reward of performing tahajjud and he slept. But he has to make the effort, put the alarm for 7 or 3:30, not for 7:30 and thinking that's the last point and I can't work, miss waking up for work, and that is his only concern. So that is the power of intention, that with an intention, even though there's not an action that follows up, you get the reward. Someone is mentioned in the hadith, Man hamma bihasanatin fa'amila biha. Whoever intends a good deed and he carries out that good deed, or by merely intending a good deed, but he doesn't practice upon it as yet, he gets one good deed written for him. And if he practices upon it, he gets from 10 to 700-fold reward. وَمَنْ هَمَّ بِسَيِّئَةٍ. And a person who intends an evil deed, and he does the evil deed, only one evil deed is written out. But if he intends an evil deed, فَتَرَكَهَا لِلَّهِ, and he leaves it out for the sake of Allah, then that is written as a good deed for him. So this shows us the magnanimity, the karam, the fadl, the graciousness, the generosity of Allah, that how we can gain multiple fold by making good intentions. Niyatul mu'min khayrun min amalihi. At times, the intention of a believer is even better than his action. He had good intentions, but he wasn't able to fulfill it entirely. So he then gets the benefit of that and Allah writes the reward. But what is required from us is to have that sincerity of intention, to do things for the sake of Allah. And Faqih Abul Lays Samarqandi rahimahumullah has outlined in his book Tanbihul Ghafilin that while people often say, don't judge me, Allah knows what is in my heart. And that is correct in a way that we are not to judge other people, because it is only Allah who knows what is in people's heart. And in the akhirat, Allah is the one who will judge. But in this world, we will take things on the apparent. So if you coming out of a bottle store with a bottle of alcohol in your hand and you say, don't judge me, Allah knows what is in my heart, we'll say, no, you were in a bottle store. And that is why we will put the ruling that you were consuming alcohol in a bottle store. The Messenger ﷺ was walking late at night and he met his wife Sayyidah Safiya radiallahu ta'ala anha. And there were two Sahaba walking by and they saw Nabi ﷺ with his wife, so they walked quickly. So Nabi ﷺ said, stop, ala rislik, stop, come back. So the Nabi ﷺ said that this is my wife Safiya and I was meeting her this evening. So they said, oh Nabi of Allah, how can we have doubt about you? That we never had any doubt. So Nabi ﷺ said, no, shaitan flows in the blood of a person like how the blood flows. So therefore, I then put that to rest. So if you're in a predicament, don't say, don't judge me. You then have to explain yourself. Why are you there? Perhaps you went to fix the CCTV camera or whatever it is. But you'll have to explain. So you can't say, don't judge me. And sometimes what we do is, is the good intention only sufficient? Is a good intention only sufficient for our salvation? The good intention has to be followed up with a good action. To say, no, my intentions is good, Allah knows what is in my heart, that is not sufficient for our salvation. You need to follow it up, because many times people do something with a good intention, but the action is bad. Robin Hood stole from the rich to give to the poor. What a noble intention, but the action is bad, and it has to be categorized in that way. Allama Rumi rahimahullah, in his Mathnawi, he's written a rather humorous anecdote, and he says that there was a man, a fly, and a bear. So what had happened was that there was this bear who was being overpowered by a serpent. And the man was coming by and he saw this, so he killed the serpent. He killed the snake or the scorpion, whatever it was. And the bear realized that this man saved my life, and he was very, very grateful to the bear. So he would follow the man. The bear would follow the man all over, go everywhere with the bear, with the man, and he would be a means of protection for him. And he was gracious. He felt indebted to the man for saving his life. So now the man goes and lies down under the tree. And while he's lying down, there's flies that are coming on the man's head, troubling the man. So the bear is chasing one away, chasing the other one away, chasing the other one away. And they're coming back and coming back. So the bear thinks to itself that, I need to put an end to these flies. So he takes a big rock and he smashes it down on the person. And in the process, he kills the flies, but he also kills the man. Allama Rumi Rahimahullah says that's why you need intelligent friends. Otherwise, a friend who is a fool will cause more harm to you. But look at the intention of the bear. It was to benefit the man. He didn't want him to be disturbed. He sleep with the zzz all the time. So he killed the flies, but in the process he killed the man also. So we will judge on the outward. And therefore, Faqih Abul Layth says that when you see a man, that when he's alone, then he doesn't do much. But when people are around him, then he does a lot. That's a sign of insincerity. Abu Umama al-Bahili came to the masjid and he saw a man in sajda crying. And he looked at him, instead of thinking, this is the buzruk of the time, the allama, such tears, such devotion. He said, "Law kana hada fi baytik." This should have been in your home. Keep that tears and that devotion for your tahajjud time at home. Don't come display it ever in the masjid so everyone can see what a pious man, what a buzruk this is. "Law kana hada fi baytik." You should have kept it for your private communion with Allah. So when a person is negligent in privacy but very eager in public, if he does actions which draws praise of people, when the cameras are on, when the media is there, when everybody knows that this is the contribution, this is the action, this is the position, then he's willing to put himself forward. But if he's going to be criticized, if there's going to be negative feedback, then he pulls out and he withdraws. That is a sign of insincerity. Maulana Rashid Ahmad Gangohi rahimahumullah was one of our seniors. And he had become blind in his old age. And like every person will have his adversaries and his devotees. There were people who didn't like him. So they would write messages, very abusive, rude, derogatory about him. Initially, his disciples and his murids would come and present and say, "Hazrat, they're writing this now. Hazrat, they've written this." And afterwards they realized that, you know what, rather let us just keep it away. And he was blind, he couldn't read anymore himself. So after a period had passed and nobody was presenting those messages, then he asked, "Where are those people? Are they still writing?" So they said, "Yes, they're still writing." So he asked them, "But you people are not bringing it to me." So they said, "No, we don't want to inconvenience you and, spoil your mood that you must hear all this nonsense." So he said, No, I want to hear it. I want to hear it. And then they read it to him, whatever they were saying. And he says, as I'm listening to this, there are two thoughts that go to my mind. I think to myself that what they're saying, am I guilty of that? If it is that I'm guilty of that, then I make tawbah immediately and I ask Allah to enable me to do better. And what they're saying, if it's false, if it's incorrect, then immediately I make shukr that, Ya Allah, you saved me from that. So he even took benefit from the criticism. And one of his murids wrote to him that, what is the sign of sincerity? And he said that the sign of sincerity is when people are saying, "Wow, what a great man." And when people are saying, "You're such a useless, you can't do anything right," both should have the same impact, no impact. That you should continue with the work at hand. That you don't say, no, whatever I do is not good enough for you people, come do it yourself. No, I'm doing what I'm doing for the sake of Allah, and you need to be able to continue with that dedication, devotion. That is the sign of sincerity. And when there's sincerity in something, then there's amazing power in that. There's a certain divine force behind the sincerity, that even if something is done in a minimum amount, yakfik al-qalil, that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam advised the Sahabi that do actions with sincerity, even a little will be a lot for you. There was one occasion where there was a pious man from the Banu Israel, and he had come to know that there was a tree that was erected, and people were worshipping the tree. And they came to say that, that there's a tree that is being worshipped. And when he heard this, he went into a fit of rage. He grabbed his axe and he marched out immediately. I'm going to chop the tree. As he's going on the path, he meets an old man who was shaitan in disguise. And the old man asked him, "Where are you going?" He says, "I'm going to cut down the tree." He says, why are you going to cut down the tree? He says, because people are worshipping this tree. So the old man says, but you're not a prophet. You haven't been deputed by Allah to do this. Why do you need to take the trouble to go cut down the tree? It's not your responsibility. He says, no, I'm going to do this. So the old man decides he's going to stop the pious man. He tries to stop him, but the pious man has such force that he overpowers the old man and he continues. As he's going, the old man stops him and says, wait, just one more thing. Let me make a proposition to you. So he asks, what is it? Say, you see, what I told you is that this is not your responsibility. And what you're going to benefit from that. But let me tell you something. Let me make an offer to you. That look, you're a poor man. You don't have money. You can't benefit others. I'm going to give you every day 2 gold coins. You can give this in charity. You can spend it on the poor. The poor will benefit in different ways. The poverty will be alleviated if you leave the tree. All you do, leave the tree, go home, and every day you'll get your 2 gold coins under your pillow, and that will be more beneficial for mankind. So the pious man thought for a moment. Then he said, perhaps what he's saying makes sense. That, there'll be more benefit in people me being able to distribute this charity amongst, and I can also use it for my own needs. So he goes home. He goes home and he abandons the entire project. He continues with his worship. That night he goes to sleep. Next morning he puts his hand under the pillow. 2 gold coins are there. He uses the one for his family and he spends it out in charity. He feels good. The next day he wakes up in the morning. He puts his hand under the pillow. He finds the 2 gold coins. He spends the one on his family and the other one in charity. He thinks that people are benefiting. So there's some goodness coming out of this. The third day, puts his hand under the pillow. Feels nothing. Checks again. There's nothing. Checks thoroughly, see there's nothing. He grabs his axe and he marches off. As he's going on the way, the old man comes and stops him. Where are you going? He says, I'm going to chop the tree. The old man says, I won't allow you to chop the tree. You're not going anywhere. He says, I'm going to chop the tree. The old man says, no, you're not. So the pious man marches on. The old man gets up to wrestle him. As he's now about to wrestle him, in the first instance, the pious man overpowered the old man, knocked him down. This time, what happens? When the old man wrestles the pious man, he throws him over. The pious man is astounded. That how is it that the first time I overpowered you, and now 3 days later, but you're overpowering me? Nothing has changed in terms of my strength, and in your strength in 3 days. So then the old man, was actually Shaitan, explained to him, said, I will explain to you what is it, but only on the condition that you go home and you leave it out, abandon the project. It says the first day, when you stood up to chop the tree, it was for the sake of Allah alone. And that is why you had that extra power where you overpowered me. And the second time, when you went to cut the tree, it was no longer for Allah's sake, it was because you didn't get your 2 gold coins under your pillow. Then you lost your power. That is why I overpowered you the second time. That is why I overpowered you the second time. That is the hidden power that sincerity for Allah has. That when you do something for the sake of Allah, then it has that hidden power in it. And sincerity is something that when it is in an action, a person will be able to gauge it. It will become visible. There was this boss that walked into an office and he saw his employee busy with something. So he asked him, what are you doing? So he says, I'm writing a script. Script? He says, I'm writing a script, memorizing how to do a sincere apology to a customer. So the boss says to him, a script? You can't script sincerity. You can't script sincerity. The fact is that you can't fake sincerity. It is something that comes from the heart. And therefore, when you're doing an action, you need to bring your attention to the action. Ask yourself, why am I doing this action? I'm doing it for the sake of Allah. I'm standing before Allah. You need to build up your psyche for the action. That I'm performing salah. This may be my last salah. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, Sallu salata muwaddi'in. Perform salah like someone who's bidding farewell to this world. Perform salah in that way. So you build up your enthusiasm for the salah. When you start the salah, that you keep your mind present. And in that way, you increase the sincerity of that action. So that is how we build up the sincerity in the action. Sincerity is that you don't say everything you think, but you mean what you say. You don't say everything that just comes to mind, and that is a major problem that we have. Any thought that comes to mind, we just utter it. You don't say everything that you think, but you mean what you say. That when you've said it, then you need to have the conviction that I stand by my word, I mean it, I'm genuine in this. And that will be the sign of sincerity. So may Allah Rabbul Izzah make us from His mukhliseen, His sincere servants. One of the pious predecessors were asked, what is sincerity? He said, to hide your good deeds like how you hide your evil deeds. We all hide our evil deeds. We don't want anyone to know. When you reach the stage where you're willing to hide your good deeds in that manner. There was one scholar of deen who, when he was sitting in seclusion, he would be reading Quran. But when someone would come visit him, he would put the Quran one side. They asked him, but why? Before the person comes, you quickly move the Quran. He says, I don't want the person to be thinking that I'm such a great person sitting and reading Quran all day. But that is our desire. We want people to think that we're so good and we're so great. So when our sincerity is there, that is when we will hide our actions. And when we do an action for the sake of Allah, then there's immense power in that action. Then at the time of difficulty, at the time of adversity, the time of calamity, that secret between you and Allah, that is what you call on. And you use that as a medium in your dua, and you'll see the immense power in that. Like the incident where the people were trapped in the cave, and it was the intention of the action that made it such that the boulder was moved and they were granted salvation. May Allah Rabbul Izzah make us from His sincere servants.